I think it's important for the CEP and the Humanity Fund going forward to reflect on where we've come from in the last 20 years and celebrate our achievements. We often talk about the role of the Humanity Fund, we talk about how it works, but we don't talk about the achievements and the stories. And that's one thing I've learned here this week, is that we have achievements. We have made real impacts in workers' lives in other countries. And I think we need to celebrate that and communicate that.
Lors du tremblement de terre en Haïti, qui a été un désastre, une catastrophe humanitaire incroyable, avec au-delà de 300 000 personnes qui sont mortes, tout le monde dans les jours que ce désastre a suivi, a regardé vers le SCEP. Il y avait des appels de dire qu'est-ce que le SCEP va faire face à cette situation-là. Et c'est grâce à l'existence d'un fonds humanitaire, qui est un fonds dédié pour l'action internationale, la solidarité internationale, que dans l'espace de quelques jours, le SCEP a pu voter et accorder des engagements concrets, considérables, pour venir en aide dans cette urgence.
Well, we live in a global world. There's no denying that. Trade is cross borders, cross nations now. We find ourselves in a defensive position. Trade unions do. It's really up to trade unions to follow trade and to follow capital. And the best way to do that is to bring workers in the developing world up to standards of the developed world. Now that isn't going to happen overnight, but that's a slow process, and we must begin that, and the Humanity Fund is a tremendous tool in doing that.
For our members who have the sense that we should be focusing strictly on what the issues are for workers in Canada, what I would say to them is our futures are linked with workers around the globe, and it's really important for us to be working together to resist that downward pressure that is happening through globalization, through employers that we're dealing with that are operating globally.
It's absolutely critical that we work in Canada to change Canada. That's one of the most important things we can do to demonstrate our solidarity with the people in the Global South. But we also can learn a lot from the people in countries in other parts of the world, and we grow and develop from strengthening their struggles, because in many cases it is the same actors that are impinging on our rights and their rights, and working together we can have a much greater impact.
Well, we're facing it in a very real way. You know, in many ways, people like journalists thought that they were insulated from globalization because they were producing content. It had to be locally produced. But we're finding more and more that those kinds of jobs are being exported overseas. For example, jobs that such as building ads, even copy editing work is now being exported overseas, and it's gone to the extent where even the coverage of City Hall, in one case down in California, is being done over the internet from India.
I think the Humanity Fund, the work they do internationally, building labor solidarity, fighting for the right to organize all over the world, improving labor standards, that helps us as workers here in Canada, because our jobs aren't just going to run, to the south to be taken by people who are paid $1 an hour or $1 a day. So it helps us, but it also helps them.
Uribe is the king of the Colombian criminal ring. Uribe is the king of the Colombian criminal ring. Uribe is the king of the Colombian criminal ring.
Mais évidemment, je pense que le plus grand défi que la mondialisation peut poser aux travailleurs canadiens, c'est le fait de voir leurs conditions de travail mises en concurrence avec celles des gens des pays en développement qui n'ont évidemment pas les mêmes chances, pas les mêmes conditions, pas les avantages sociaux qu'on peut avoir, puis qui n'ont pas non plus la structure sociale qu'on a dans nos pays développés, si on peut les appeler comme ça.
I think the biggest challenge that workers face with globalisation is being able to develop networks and being able to share experiences across the globe. I think globalisation and the movement of jobs from one country to another poses enormous challenges to workers everywhere.
Canadian trade unions have a very important role to play addressing poverty in the Global South, because we can no longer achieve justice for workers in Canada or the Global South without international solidarity. What the corporations and the banks try to do is play off workers in one jurisdiction against workers in another. And as we know, an injury to one is an injury to all. The Canadian trade union movement, by fighting against things like free trade agreements and the policies of the International Monetary Fund, not only are strengthening our own ability to control our destiny, but are playing a very important role in empowering the movements and the peoples of the Global South to also have control over their destiny.
El primer elemento es un elemento ético. Si queremos cambiar el mundo, tenemos que empezar a cambiarlo desde ahora en nuestra relación cotidiana. Y la relación cotidiana es de principios, no es de conveniencia, no es de fortaleza en abstracto, es una cuestión de principio, es un principio ético. En la identificación como hermanos, como compañeros y compañeras, como iguales, nos permite enfrentar la adversidad. En ese sentido, lo que hay que construir son alianzas sindicales mucho más allá de las fronteras, mucho más allá de las propias legislaciones locales y mucho más allá de los principios internacionales, por ejemplo los de la OIT. Hay que ir más allá que ellas, es decir, construyendo organización en base al principio ético de la solidaridad, podemos empezar a creer en que estamos construyendo un mundo mejor.
To be able to keep what we have here, we have to make sure that people in other countries understand the benefits that we enjoy with everything that we fought for. And if we don't share that information and have raised their standards of living, where ours are going to dramatically drop, and we can end up back in a third world country.
I think the role of the CEP Humanity Fund within the union is a union fights for the rights of workers and for the dignity of in the workplace, and I think we have a larger responsibility to ensure that those rights are maintained outside the workplace, and that's what unions are about.
Well, you know, unions are positioned like no others to connect with partner organizations around the world. There are already pre-existing linkages going back many, many years, but when you add to that a will to support development initiatives, sustainable development, economic development, strategies to address global poverty, that all becomes part of the connection, strategies based in communities as well as in workplaces. Then you have a powerful mix, and groups like the CEP Humanity Fund can do uniquely valuable things, because you are both experienced in a trade union context, but also rooted in communities, and you can bring all of that knowledge to bear to build bridges that are very fruitful, very useful, very productive, and solidarity, there's nothing like it.